Cliff Burton over here. Everyone, hi Cliff, how you doing?
Metallica is an American metal band that is the seventh biggest selling act in American history. Metallica has sold hundreds of millions of albums worldwide and it was the top selling music group of the 90s. Metallica had toured all over the world and has gone through many changes that have changed their music styles. This is the history of the American metal band Metallica. Metallica was formed by Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield. Ulrich and Hetfield had formed the band in Los Angeles, California on October 28, 1981. Lars had posted a want ad in his local newspapers stating that he was looking for more people to jam with. James Hetfield had answered this ad, and after jamming together, they had decided to record some songs. Once while Lars was talking to his friend Ron Quintana, they had came up with the name for this band called Metallica. Lars Ulrich had then began to search the classifieds for a lead guitarist and had noticed that Dave Mustaine was a guitarist looking for a band to play with. Lars and James had recruited him after meeting with Dave and noticing his awesome guitar skills. The band now needed to find a bass player, and James happened to be roommates with Ron McGovney, who was interested in learning how to play the bass. Ron was then recruited to Metallica after learning how to play the bass guitar. While performing a gig in San Francisco, Metallica had met a band named Trauma. Lars and James watched Trauma's performance and were amazed by the performance given by their bassist Cliff Burton. Cliff was performing a song entitled Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, one of Cliff's famous bass solos. Lars and James had asked Cliff to join their band, but he had refused to join unless they had moved to San Francisco. After a while, they were convinced and made the move. Cliff Burton then replaced Ron McGovney as bass player for Metallica. Metallica had then recorded a demo album entitled No Life Till Leather and had sent it to a record shop in New York. John Zazula, owner of the record shop Metal Heaven, had asked Metallica to come to New York and record a studio album for him. Metallica had agreed and moved to New York. Due to drug and alcohol abuse, it was decided that Dave Mustaine would be kicked out of the band and be replaced by Kirk Hammett from Exodus. Once Kirk Hammett had joined Metallica, they had begun working on their first studio album, Kill 'Em All. Kill 'Em All was released on July 29, 1983, and made the top 120 on the Billboard 200 charts. After their Kill 'Em All for One tour, Metallica had began to record their second studio album, Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning was released on July 27, 1984, and had reached number 100 on the Billboard 200 charts. Metallica was then later signed to the Elektra recording label after Elektra's A&R director Michael Alago attended a Metallica concert. After signing with Elektra, Metallica began to work on their third studio album, Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets was released on March 3, 1986, and had reached number 29 on the Billboard Top 200 charts. This album spent a total of 72 weeks on the Billboard 200 charts. On September 27, 1986, Metallica's tour bus had crashed while en route to their next destination on tour. The bus had flipped many times and unfortunately pinned bassist Cliff Burton to the road. The rest of the band members had got away with minor injuries, but Cliff Burton did not survive the crash. Lars, James, and Kirk had decided that Cliff would want them to continue making their music, and Metallica then began tryouts for a new bass player. Jason Newsted had heard of these tryouts and decided to learn all of Metallica's songs, and had tried out for the band. After his tryout, it was decided that Jason Newsted would be the new bass player for Metallica. After Jason Newsted had joined Metallica, they had then finished their tour and decided to go back to the studio to record another album. This album would be entitled Injustice for All. Injustice for All was released on August 25th, 1988, and had reached number 6 on the Billboard 200 charts. After Injustice for All has been on the market for about 9 weeks, it was announced to be a platinum record. Metallica had then headed back to the studio along with Bob Rock to record their next album, the Black Album. This album was released on August 13th, 1991, and had reached number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 charts. This album was certified 15 times platinum. After a few tours, Metallica had returned to the studio to write and record a new album. This album, their 6th studio album, was entitled Load. This album was released on June 4th, 1996, and reached number 1 of the Billboard Top 200 charts and the ARIA charts. After a few tours, Metallica had made a follow-up album called Reload. Reload was released on November 18th, 1997, and had reached number 1 in the Billboard Top 200 charts. After touring for a few years, Newsted had decided that he wished to do a side project band called Echo Brain. Newsted had left Metallica to work on Echo Brain on January 17th, 2001. In April of 2001, some filmmakers had decided to make a documentary of Metallica due to their current struggles. During the filming of this documentary, many things had occurred, such as rehab for James, the hiatus of Metallica, and how Metallica recorded their workings in the studio. This documentary was later entitled Some Kind of Monster. During the filming of this documentary, Metallica held tryouts for a new bass player. Robert Trujillo, former member of Suicidal Tendencies and Ozzy Osbourne's band, was picked up as a new bass player for Metallica. In 2003, MTV had awarded Metallica with the MTV Icon Award and was given a tribute concert. After MTV's Icon, Metallica had then released their next studio album, Saint Anger. Saint Anger was released on June 5th, 2003, and had hit the number 1 spot on the Billboard Top 200 charts. After a bit of touring, Metallica had then decided to head back to the studio and record their next album, Death Magnetic. On September 10th, 2008, Metallica released their most recent studio album, Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic was released under the Warner Brothers record label and instantaneously hit number 1 on several charts around the world, including the Billboard Top 200 charts. Metallica is the first band ever to have 5 albums reach the number 1 spot on the Billboard Top 200 charts. Metallica has sold hundreds of millions of albums worldwide and has managed to stay number 1 on several music charts. To this day, they still continue to tour and write new and original music. Now you know the history of the American metal band Metallica.